How are you guys doing? Today is Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review yesterday's Elite matchups and performances that took place on Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022. And of course, I'm going to preview everything that's going on today as we navigate through the world of sports one day at a time. Taking a quick step back and looking at where we are now that we enter March, which is, March Madness March. The college basketball season is coming to a close as we are getting ready to see the last regular season games of the season before we go to the conference tournament. In the NBA, with the NBA All-Star Game up, the NBA teams are in their final month and a half or so as teams are starting to seed themselves out and get ready for the playoffs. And of course, in soccer, because we are in the 2022 year, we are in the second half of the European schedule as, of course, the MLS is picking back up. With that said, starting off with college basketball, starting off with the fifth-ranked team in the nation, the Auburn Tigers would end up beating unranked Mississippi State 81-68. They would win this matchup by 13 in overtime after outscoring Mississippi State 20-7. On the winning end of this matchup, the fifth-ranked Auburn Tigers would be led in scoring by their freshman starting forward Jabari Smith. He finished with 27 points and 10 rebounds in 35 minutes. He shot 9 for 13 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and he shot 6 for 7 from the foul line. With this win, the fifth-ranked Auburn Tigers are 26-4. They are 14-3 in the SEC. For the moment, that is the best record. They sit one game ahead of Arkansas, Kentucky, and Tennessee, as Auburn is the only team in the SEC with less than 4 losses in conference play. With this loss, the unranked Mississippi State Bulldogs are 17-13. They are 8-9 in the SEC for the time being, sitting at about the middle. Now looking at the 14th ranked team in the nation, staying within the SEC, the Arkansas Razorbacks hosted the unranked LSU Tigers. Arkansas beat LSU by 1 point. They won 77-76, as this game was roughly close the entire game. On the winning end of this matchup, the 14th ranked Razorbacks would be led in scoring by their starting guard, Stanley Umude. He finished with 23 points and 5 rebounds, and he would go on to shoot 8 for 16 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the 14th ranked Arkansas Razorbacks are 24-6. They are now 13-4 in the SEC. They are tied with Kentucky and Tennessee for the second best record in the conference, right behind Auburn, who has one less loss. With this loss, the unranked LSU Tigers are now 20-10. They are now 8-9 in the SEC. Jumping out to the 18th team in the nation, the UConn Huskies would go to Omaha, Nebraska to face off against the unranked Creighton Blue Jays. Creighton would beat UConn 64-62. They won this matchup by 2 points after they outscored UConn by 10 in the first half. On the losing end of this matchup, the 18th ranked Huskies were led in scoring by their starting guard RJ Cole. He finished with 20 points in 35 minutes. He shot 9 for 20 from the field. On the winning end of this matchup, the unranked Creighton Blue Jays were led in scoring by their starting center, Ryan Kalkbrenner. He finished with 22 points and 10 rebounds in 35 minutes. He shot 10 for 14 from the field and 2 for 3 from the foul line. With this win, the unranked Creighton Blue Jays are 20-9. They are 12-6 in the Big East. They are tied with UConn for the third best record in the conference behind Providence and Villanova. And like I said, with Creighton, with this loss, the 18th ranked UConn Huskies are now 21-8. Overall, they're one game better than Creighton, but just like Creighton, they're 12-6 in the Big East, and they are both sitting behind Providence and Villanova, like I just said. And then, of course, last but not least, looking at the lowest ranked team to play yesterday, the 25th ranked Alabama Crimson Tide hosted the unranked Texas A&M Aggies. Texas A&M would upset Alabama, win it by 16. They won 87-71 in Alabama. They won by 16 after they outscored Alabama by 19 in the second half. On the losing end of this game, the 25th ranked Crimson Tide were led in scoring by their starting guard, Jaden Shackelford. He finished with 16 points. He shot 4 for 12 from the field, as all 4 of his makes came from 3. He was 4 for 10 from 3. He was 4 for 5 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the unranked Texas A&M Aggies were led in scoring by their starting guard, Quentin Jackson. He finished with 28 points, and he would go on to shoot 9 for 13 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and he made all 9 of his free throws on the day. Their starting guard, Tyrese Radford, finished with 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 steals. He shot 9 for 15 from the field and 4 for 6 from 3. With this win, the unranked Texas A&M Aggies are 19-11. They are now 8-9 in the SEC. They are tied with LSU and Mississippi State for the 5th worst record in the entire SEC. With this loss, the 25th ranked Alabama Crimson Tide are now 19-11. They are now 9-8 in the SEC. They are tied with Florida and South Carolina for the 5th best record in the conference, as they still sit behind Auburn, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Tennessee. So that is what college basketball is looking like following yesterday's matchups. Looking at what's going on today, starting at 7 o'clock on ESPN2, the 14th ranked Houston Cougars are going to host unranked Temple in the Fertitta Center. Houston enters this matchup with a 14-2 record in the American Conference. At the same time, at 7 on FS1, the 20th ranked Illinois Fighting Illini are going to host unranked Penn State in the State Farm Center in Champaign, Illinois. Illinois enters this matchup with a 13-5 Big Ten record. At the same time, at 7, the 23rd ranked Ohio State Buckeyes are going to host unranked Michigan State in the Value City Arena. Ohio State enters this matchup with an 11-7 Big Ten record. At 8 o'clock on the Big 12 Network, 6th ranked Kansas is going to host unranked TCU in the Allen Fieldhouse. Kansas enters this matchup with a 12-4 record in the Big 12. At 9 o'clock on ESPN2, 2nd ranked Arizona is going to host unranked Stanford in the McKale Center. And at the same time, the 24th ranked Iowa Hawkeyes are going to go to Ann Arbor to face off against unranked Michigan in the Chrysler Center. Iowa enters this matchup with an 11-7 record in the Big Ten. Now looking at what's going on in the NBA as teams are making their final pushes towards the playoffs. Looking at what's going on in Cleveland, the Cavaliers hosted the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets beat the Cavaliers 119-98. They won this matchup by 21 after they were able to outscore the Cavaliers by 15 in the first half, not to mention they were also able to outscore them by 6 in the second. On the losing end of this matchup, the hometown Cleveland Cavaliers were led in scoring by their all-star starting point guard out of Vanderbilt, Darius Garland. He would go on to finish with 33 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, and 7 turnovers in 33 minutes. He shot 13 for 22 from the field, 5 for 10 from 3, and he would go on to shoot 2 for 4 from the foul line. Their all-star starting center, Jared Allen, would finish with 18 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 steals in 33 minutes. He shot 7 for 9 from the field and 4 for 5 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Charlotte Hornets would be led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Terry Rozier. Rozier finished with 29 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals in 33 minutes. He shot 9 for 19 from the field. He would go on to shoot 5 for 9 from 3 and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. And then their elite starting point guard, LaMelo Ball, would only play 8 minutes. He would go on to finish with only 2 points off of 2 made free throws alongside 4 assists and 2 steals in 8 minutes. And with this win, the Charlotte Hornets are now 31-33. That is the 9th best record in the Eastern Conference. They've only won 3 of their last 10 games. They sit a game and a half behind the 8th place Brooklyn Nets. They sit half a game ahead of the 10th place Atlanta Hawks. They trail the Eastern Conference leading Miami Heat by 10.5 games at the moment. With this loss, the Cleveland Cavaliers are 36-26. That is the 5th best record in the East. They've lost their last 2 games. They've lost 5 of their last 10, and they are sitting they have 1 less win and 1 less loss than the Boston Celtics. So they're sitting about even with them. They sit a game and a half behind the 4th place defending champs Milwaukee Bucks. They sit a game and a half ahead of the 7th place Toronto Raptors. And they sit 4.5 total games behind the Eastern Conference leading Miami Heat. Jumping out to Orlando, Florida, the Magic hosted the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers beat the Magic 122 to 114 after outscoring the Magic by 15 in the fourth quarter to tie it up and go into overtime. They would go on to carry that momentum to outscore the Magic 12 to 4 in overtime to win their 22nd game of the year. On the losing end of this matchup, the hometown Magic were led in scoring by their starting small forward, their rookie out of Michigan, Franz Wagner. He finished with 28 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 steals in 36 minutes. He shot 10 for 18 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, and he would go on to shoot a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. Their starting center, Mo Bamba, would finish with 19 points. He would also add 12 rebounds in 34 minutes. He shot 8 for 9 from the field. He made both of his three-pointers, and he made his only free throw of the night. Their starting center out of Duke, Wendell Carter Jr., finished with 13 points, 18 rebounds, 5 assists, and 6 turnovers in 41 minutes. He shot 5 for 12 from the field and 3 for 5 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Indiana Pacers were led in scoring by their starting point guard out of Virginia, Malcolm Brogdon. Brogdon finished with 31 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, and 2 steals in 41 minutes. He shot 8 for 18 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and 12 for 15 from the foul line. Their starting point guard, Tyrese Halliburton, out of Iowa State, finished with 21 points and 6 assists, as well as 3 steals and 2 blocks in 40 minutes. He shot 7 for 16 from the field and 4 for 6 from the foul line. Their forward off the bench, Jalen Smith, finished with 15 points and 15 rebounds in 37 minutes. He shot 4 for 7 from the field and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Indiana Pacers are now 22 and 42. That is the third worst record in the Eastern Conference. They've only won 3 of their last 10 games. They sit 8.5 games behind the 10th place Atlanta Hawks outside of the Eastern Conference play-in picture. With this loss, the Orlando Magic are now 15 and 48. That is currently the worst record in the NBA, as they've lost 7 of their last 10 games. They trail the 10th seed Atlanta Hawks by 15 games at the moment. Jumping out to Philadelphia, the 76ers hosted the New York Knicks. The Sixers beat the Knicks in what would be James Harden's Philadelphia home debut. And the Sixers beat the Knicks 123 to 108. They won by 15 after they outscored the Knicks by a combined 22 points in the second half. They outscored the Knicks by 19 points, doubling their third quarter output, and that would be the turning point in this game. On the losing end of this matchup, the New York Knicks were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard out of Duke, R.J. Barrett. Barrett finished with 30 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists in 40 minutes. He shot 10 for 23 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and 7 for 8 from the foul line. Their starting power forward, Julius Randle, finished with 24 points and 6 rebounds in 33 minutes. He shot 9 for 21 from the field and 6 for 8 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Philadelphia 76ers were led in scoring by their elite starting center out of Kansas, Joel Embiid. He finished with 27 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 blocks in 35 minutes. He went on to shoot 7 for 15 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and 11 for 13 from the foul line. Their elite starting shooting guard, former NBA MVP James Harden, would finish with 26 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists in 36 minutes. He shot 8 for 13 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, and 8 for 10 from the foul line. Their starting point guard, Tyrese Maxey, would finish with 25 points in 36 minutes. He shot 7 for 12 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, and 7 for 8 from the foul line. With this win, the Philadelphia 76ers are 38 and 23. That is the third best record in the Eastern Conference. They've now won their last 4 games. Their 4-game winning streak is the longest active winning streak in the Eastern Conference. It is tied with the LA Clippers for the longest active winning streak in the NBA as well. The Sixers have won 7 of their last 10 games. They sit half a game behind the second place Chicago Bulls. They sit a full game ahead ahead of the fourth place defending champs Milwaukee Bucks, and they sit 2 games behind the conference leading Miami Heat out east. With this loss, the New York Knicks are now 25-37. That is the 4th worst record in the Eastern Conference right now. They've lost their last 6 games. That is the longest active losing streak in the NBA. They've lost 9 of their last 10 games as they trailed the 10-seed Atlanta Hawks by 4.5 games in the conference now. Jumping out to Houston, the Rockets hosted the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz beat the Rockets 132-127 in overtime. After the Rockets outscored the Jazz by 13 in the second half to send it into overtime, the Jazz outscored the Rockets 15-10 in overtime to come away with win number 39. On the losing end of this matchup, the hometown Houston Rockets would be led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, last year's number 2 overall pick, Jalen Green, out of the G League. He finished with 27 points in 47 minutes. He shot 11 for 16 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3, and he made his only free throw. Their starting center, Christian Wood, finished with 24 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 steals in 43 minutes. He shot 8 for 13 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3. Their forward off the bench, Kenyon Martin Jr., whose dad played in the NBA, finished with 20 points and 7 rebounds in 36 minutes. He shot 8 for 14 from the field and 4 for 8 from 3. Their starting shooting guard, Kevin Porter Jr., would finish with 16 points, 12 assists, 2 steals, and 5 turnovers as he fouled out in 40 minutes. Porter shot 6 for 14 from the field on the day. On the winning end of this matchup, the Utah Jazz were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard out of Louisville, Donovan Mitchell. He finished with 37 points, 2 rebounds, 10 assists, 3 steals, and 6 turnovers in 40 minutes. Spida shot 13 for 27 from the field, 4 for 14 from 3, and 7 for 11 from the foul line. Their elite starting center out of France, Rudy Gobert, finished with 27 points and 17 rebounds and 2 blocks in 38 minutes. He went on to shoot 12 for 14 from the field, and he would go on to shoot 3 for 4 from the foul line on the day. With this win, the Utah Jazz are now 39-22. That is the 4th best record in the Western Conference. They've now won their last 3 games, and they've won 9 of their last 10. They sit 3 games behind the 3rd place Memphis Grizzlies out west. They sit 2.5 games ahead of the 5th place Dallas Mavericks, and they trail the conference-leading Phoenix Suns by 10.5 games. With this loss, the Houston Rockets are now 15-47. That is the worst record in the Western Conference, as that is actually the 2nd worst record in the NBA, tied with the Detroit Pistons. I was actually wrong earlier about the Knicks having the longest active losing streak. The Houston Rockets have the longest active losing streak. They've lost their last 11 games. They trail the 10th seed New Orleans Pelicans at the moment by 11 games in the conference. Taking a look at what happened in Milwaukee, the defending champs Milwaukee Bucks hosted the Miami Heat, who are sitting on top of the East. The Bucks beat the Heat 120-119. They won by 1 after they outscored the Heat by 5 in the 4th quarter to overcome their 4-point deficit. On the losing end of this matchup, the Miami Heat were led in scoring by their guard off the bench out of Kentucky, Tyler Hero. He finished with 30 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 turnovers in 35 minutes. He went on to shoot 11 for 21 from the field, 6 for 10 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. The Heat starting point guard Gabe Vincent finished with 21 points, 6 assists, and 2 steals in 32 minutes. He went on to shoot 8 for 15 from the field and 5 for 11 from 3. Their starting center out of Kentucky, Bam Adebayo, finished with 18 points, 12 rebounds, and 2 steals in 37 minutes. He shot 8 for 17 from the field and 2 for 4 from the foul line. Their elite starting center, Jimmy Butler, finished with 6 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 blocks in 35 minutes. He shot 2 for 14 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown defending champs were led in scoring by their elite starting power forward, the NBA's reigning NBA MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo out of Greece. He would finish with 28 points, 17 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals in 34 minutes. He shot shot 9 for 20 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, and 9 for 11 from the foul line. Their starting small forward and all-star Chris Middleton would finish with 26 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists in 36 minutes. He shot 8 for 20 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. Their starting point guard, Drew Holiday, finished with 25 points, 6 rebounds, 11 assists, and 2 steals in 38 minutes. He shot 8 for 17 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Milwaukee Bucks are now 38-25. That is the 4th best record in the Eastern Conference. They've now won their last 2 games, and they've won 6 of their last 10. They sit a game behind the 3rd place Philadelphia 76ers out east. They sit a game and a half ahead of the 5th place Cleveland Cavaliers and the 6th place Boston Celtics. They trail the conference-leading Miami Heat by 3 whole games. With this loss, the Miami Heat are 41-22. That is still the best record in the Eastern Conference. So far, they are the only team that has clinched a non-losing record. They've only lost 2 of their last 10 games. They sit a game and a half ahead of the 2nd place Chicago Bulls at the moment. Jumping out to New Orleans, the Pelicans hosted the Sacramento Kings. The Pelicans beat the Kings 125-95. They won by 30 after they outscored the Sacramento Kings by a combined 26 points in the second half, 16 in the fourth quarter, more than doubling what the Kings did that quarter. On the losing end of this matchup, the Sacramento Kings were led in scoring by their starting point guard out of Kentucky, De'Aaron Fox. He would finish with 25 points in 37 minutes. He shot 9 for 18 from the field. Alongside him, their starting power forward out of Gonzaga, Domantas Sabonis, finished with 15 points, 14 rebounds, and 7 assists in 33 minutes. He shot 6 for 16 from the field and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown New Orleans Pelicans were led in scoring by their elite starting small forward out of Duke, Brandon Ingram. Ingram finished with 33 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists in 32 minutes. He shot 15 for 19 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and then 1 for 2 from the foul line. Their starting center, Jonas Valanciunas, finished with 17 points and 14 rebounds in 31 minutes. He shot 7 for 13 from the field. He made his only 3, and he made both of his free throws on the night. With this win, the New Orleans Pelicans are now 26-36. That is the 10th best record in the Western Conference. They've won their last 3 games, and they've won 6 of their last 10. They are sitting a game and a half behind the 9th place Los Angeles Lakers. They sit a game ahead of the Portland Trailblazers, who are the first team on the outside of the play-in picture looking in. With this loss, the Sacramento Kings are 23-41. That is the 3rd worst record in the Western Conference. They've now lost 6 of their last 10 games. They sit 4 games behind the 10th place New Orleans Pelicans in the West. Jumping up to the Mile High City, the Denver Nuggets hosted the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder were able to pick up their 20th win of the season after they beat the Nuggets 119-107. They won this matchup by 12 after they went on to outscore the Denver Nuggets by 14 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the hometown Denver Nuggets would be led in scoring by their elite starting center, last year's regular season MVP, Nikola Jokic out of Serbia. He would finish with 22 points, 16 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and 6 turnovers in 33 minutes. He would go on to shoot 10 for 17 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. And then, of course, on the winning end of this matchup, the Oklahoma City Thunder were led in scoring by their starting point guard, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He finished with 29 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and 7 turnovers, as well as 2 steals in 37 minutes. He shot 10 for 23 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and he shot 6 for 8 from the foul line. Their starting power forward, Isaiah Roby, finished with 26 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks, all in 34 minutes. He shot 9 for 13 from the field, 4 for 5 from 3, and he would shoot 4 for 7 from the foul line. With this win, the Oklahoma City Thunder are now 20-42. That is now the 2nd worst record in the Western Conference. They've won 3 of their last 10 games. They are currently sitting 6 games behind the 10th place New Orleans Pelicans. With this loss, the Denver Nuggets are now 36-26. That is the sixth best record in the Western Conference. They've only lost 2 of their last 10 games. They now sit 14 games behind the conference-leading Phoenix Suns at the moment. Speaking of the Phoenix Suns, last but not least, the Suns hosted the Portland Trailblazers, and in an effort to show how strong they were as an NBA team, they beat the Trailblazers by 30. They won this game 120-90 to pick up their 50th win of the year. They won this game by 30 after they outscored the Trailblazers virtually in every single quarter. They outscored the Trailblazers by 14 in the second quarter, and they would go on to outscore the Suns by 15 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the Trailblazers were led in scoring by their point guard off the bench, Brandon Williams. He would go on to finish with 14 points in 15 minutes. He shot 5 for 8 from the field. He made his only 3, and he would go on to make all 3 of his free throws on the day. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Phoenix Suns would be led in scoring by their small forward off the bench, Cameron Johnson out of UNC. He finished with 20 points in 24 minutes. He shot 6 for 8 from the field, 4 for 5 from 3, and he shot a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. And then with this win, the Phoenix Suns are now 50-12. That is the best record in the Western Conference and the best record in the NBA. They are the first team in the NBA to cross the 50-win threshold. They've won 8 of their last 10 games, as they sit 7 games ahead of the second-best team in the NBA and in the Western Conference, the Golden State Warriors. With this loss, the Portland Trailblazers are now 25-37. That is the 5th worst record in the Western Conference. They've lost their last 3 games, and they've lost 6 of their last 10. They sit a game behind the 10th place New Orleans Pelicans, as they sit 1 game just outside of the play-in picture, just to get a sense of what the West is looking like. That is what the NBA is looking like following yesterday's matchups. Taking a look at what's going on today, because today is Thursday, the primetime games are on TNT. The first game will be at 7:30 as the Boston Celtics, who hold the 6th best record in the East, are going to host the Memphis Grizzlies, who hold the 3rd best record in the entire NBA at this point. The Celtics enter this matchup having won 8 of their last 10. The Grizzlies enter this matchup having won 8 of their last 10, including their last 2. The second matchup being on primetime will be an LA matchup, as the Clippers will host the Lakers in the Crypto.com Arena. The Clippers have the 8th best record in the West, and the Lakers have the 9th best record in the West. Clippers have a 4-game winning streak, which at this moment is the longest active winning streak in the NBA, tied with the Sixers. They look to claim the sole lead for that at least. They've won 6 of their last 10. The Lakers have lost 7 of their last 10 games, as they've lost their last 3. Looking at the games that aren't going to be on prime time, at 7 o'clock, the Atlanta Hawks are going to host the Chicago Bulls in State Farm Arena. The Brooklyn Nets are going to host the Miami Heat in the Barclays Center. At 7:30, the Toronto Raptors are going to host the Detroit Pistons. The Dallas Mavericks are going to host the Golden State Warriors in the American Airlines Center at 8:30. And at the same time at 8:30, the San Antonio Spurs are going to host the Sacramento Kings. Taking a look at what happened in the world of soccer really quickly, because the big games happened in the domestic cups. I'm just going to jump to those. Starting off in England, the big matchups taking place. The first big team to play was Chelsea, as they were able to pull off a late 3-2 win versus Luton Town. After Luton Town was up 2-1 going into the half, Chelsea would open up the second half with a goal from Timo Werner, their German striker, and then they would go ahead with a goal from their elite Belgian striker Romelu Lukaku in the 78th minute. With this win, they'll advance to the next round. Another big team that was able to pull off a win was Liverpool, as they beat Norwich City 2-1 thanks to a first half brace from their Japanese forward Takumi Minamino. With this win, they will go on to the next round. Looking at what happened in the first leg of the Italian Coppa Italia semifinal, Juventus would end up beating Fiorentina 1-0 off a Fiorentina own goal, and Juventus will carry this 1-0 advantage into the aggregate. Taking a look at what's going on today, as today is Thursday, there's not much going on, as the biggest matchup will be Ajax facing off against Alkmaar in the Netherlands. But with that said, that is everything I have for you today. As today is Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. Once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are done, I'm going to come back tomorrow on Friday, March 3rd. With that said, I want to thank the ESPN, NCAA, NBA, and FIFA websites for giving me all I need for this episode. I do hope all is well. And once everything is done, I will come back tomorrow for another episode. But until then, I want to thank everyone for listening. I do hope all is well. And I apologize for butchering the names because I do eventually plan on getting them right. Thanks for listening to my piece, and I'll catch you with another piece tomorrow and a couple more after this. Peace out.